These are not just notes. No, they are my napkins of fear. They are my very small security blankets, and no one will take them from me. Good afternoon. My name is Crystal Orren, and I manage theatrical publicity and communications for Wellgo USA Entertainment. And while my company is best known for its martial arts movies, so think Donnie Yen, Jackie Chan, the Ip Man movies, we find, acquire, and distribute genre, action, and international films from all over the world and put them into theaters and homes all over the world. And I have a question, but not the one you're thinking of, probably, not just yet. Have you ever wanted to do something big? Something that really matters, even if just to you. Something that resonates, that sings in the moment and then lasts and then informs who you are for the rest of your life. Turns out that's innate, down to the genetic neuroscience. The limbic system of the brain, made up of many things, but includes the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the amygdala. Those are the pleasure-seeking and risk-taking centers of the brain. Turns out we are hardwired to pursue things like beauty, adventure, and meaning. But ironically enough, it also houses the fight or flight instinct, and that's good. It regulates us and keeps us from doing things that are physically dangerous or profoundly stupid. But it shows that we're already in conflict between our hearts and our minds. And then let's add a little layer of social resistance to it. That kind of thing only happens in the movies. And don't you just love them? Man, the lights go down and a beam of light hits the screen, and in that moment, anything is possible. And if art truly imitates life, then that means that the moments we love, those movie moments, are also absolutely possible. But first, let's go back. There are two schools of thought about the effectiveness of flashbacks and montages. So a lot of people think that it's lazy filmmaking. I have dedicated my whole life to loving movies, and when done right, I dig me a nice flashback. It gives you a whole lot of context in a little bit of time. And I grew up in the 1980s, which I would argue was the best era for rock anthem-based montages. And while I don't have rights for any of the music, I could probably make my own. Oh, she loved the movies and made her dreams come true. Well, wow, you know. so let's give you a little bit more information. That was awesome. A little bit more information about me via a little flashback montage. So it is 1974, and a little voice pipes up from the back seat saying, "Look, Mom, it's Snow White." It's a movie marquee by the side of the road, and it's little Crystal, 2 years old, and it turns out she can read. In 1977, the first of many father-daughter outings to the movies. Now, this year it was Star Wars, followed closely by the very first Lord of the Rings movie, which was this quasi-animated rotoscoped Ralph Bakshi film that everybody thought was incomprehensible, except for me and my dad, because he'd been reading it to me as my bedtime stories for the last 2 years. And he's here today. Hi, Dad. He may not like this next part. 1991 and my senior year of high school. I'm on my senior trip to beautiful Sandestin, Florida, but instead of frolicking on the beaches, I have snuck out at breakfast time, hailed a cab into town to catch the very first showings of Silence of the Lambs, which I am 100% not allowed to watch by my parents. Sorry, Dad. 1994, I am busted and in trouble. I have been found asleep on the floor of the TCU Film Department's Laserdisc library. Millennials, I'm going to let you Google what that is. I am the film's I'm the film school's Laserdisc librarian, and I have clearly abused my keys to get in there and watch movies all night on the last night of spring break. What they didn't know was I had actually not gone on spring break and had been holed up in there for the last 3 days. In 2000, I fell in love with a local film festival, the Asian Film Festival of Dallas, and walked out and begged them to give me a volunteer position, which turned into my full-time, unpaid second job for the next 10 years. And in 2011, I get an offer for a dream job with an honest-to-God film distributor, and I was told one of the keys to my getting the work was the large tattoo of a film reel on my leg. The CEO said, well, if she's wearing it on her body, I guess she's committed. That only happens in the movies. Not for nothing, but shame on us for blowing off the hardwired desires of our hearts and our minds as something fictional, unattainable, and you, silly goose, how childish or naive to think that you could. I think this is fear. The industry of psychology in the US is approaching between $44 and $55 billion this year. That's neck and neck with heart disease, and that's according to Dr. Laura Honos-Webb. She's a specialist in depression and ADHD in adults. And by the way, if you do not know what ADHD looks like in an adult, hello. And the interesting part about depression is that it is going to be the #3 cause of disability worldwide in the next 5 years. And in addition, when we talk about psychology today, lists the 3 main reasons patients seek treatment, aside from mental illness, depression. It's because patients no longer know how to communicate, to create a sense of community, and they've forgotten what they've wanted out of their lives. News outlets from Time magazine to the BBC went nuts a month ago over the results of a study from dating app Clover. They surveyed about 200,000 of their users as to where they want to have their very favorite first date. 3 guesses, first 2 don't count. It's Starbucks. But among the top 5 life interview questions when you're trying to get to know somebody, what's your favorite movie? Movie moments bring us together. They excite and inspire. They're visceral, and for a reason. They're made that way. A sea of languages and cultures and our own failings hold us from one another, but people still bond over the kid in Shane. Come back, Shane! Or when Bambi's mother died. Or, oh my gosh, James Cagney in White Heat. The world's exploding into flames around him. He's yelling, "Made it my top of the world!" Baby in the corner. Right? You're laughing, but you feel that, right? So why are we not making more of these movie moments for ourselves? You don't need a ticket, and you don't need somebody else's script. And let me get a little bit forward. Morpheus didn't actually say this in The Matrix, but what if I told you in 3 small adjustments to your perception, you could not only create more movie moments for yourselves, but make them richer, and the effects could last a lifetime. Let's get started. Number 1, think like a director. Look, I am bad at math, awkward in public, goofy from the jump, but words I know. So let's define our terms. A director is the creative captain of a ship, the person who gets the praise and also the blame. So when a film fails, you might hear something like, "Oh, this wasn't my vision. It was taken from me, cobbled together by committee, and the end result was something confused and wrong. The director knows it, the audience knows it, and nobody's happy. And that is why it is so critically important to think like a director. It is so easy to let somebody else guide your course, to live in a passive way, but rather than just bad box office, the personal returns you might get as a result is addiction, broken relationships, depression, and it gets worse. And that is why it is so very important to find and create movie moments for yourself, not only to keep your own course straight, but in order to enrich the lives of the people around you. They can be big and they can be small. They're as varied and as vast as your imagination. Small like that perfect cup of coffee. You know, when the steam hits the light just right and it is so perfect, you wish you had your phone or your friend, and you are trying to figure out how to recreate it and share it with other people. It is literally that simple. Or big, like a wedding. When my husband Mike and I got remarried, we walked down the aisle together to Lenny Kravitz's Let Love Rule. But before that happened, before we swung those doors open, a guy in the middle of the audience jumped up on the pew, pulled out his saxophone, and belted out a solo. Magic movie moment. But this is what we're talking about. People talk about living with intention, and this is absolutely that. I'm going to come back to that as well. But once you start to define what your movie moments are and looking to make those special moments that you pull out and go, yeah, that's it. That's what I'll remember forever, you're right on course. Number 2, cast yourself first. Now, this isn't about selfishness. It's about authenticity. I'm losing my place. There is a whole lot of talk about the word curation these days. And I'm taking something from The Princess Bride here. I do not think that word means what you think it means. Curation is not gathering up a bunch of stuff, slapping a label on it, and repackaging it to the masses. That's not it. You can ask the aggregators all day, don't make it true. Curation was actually the goal of priests way back in the day, to lift up and enrich the hearts and the minds of the people in the congregation. So while those YouTube playlists of unlikely animal friends might actually be healing your soul, you, as a director, are now, it's so very important to make your own path, thinking like a director, and curating those moments, not only for yourself, but to enrich the hearts and the minds of the people around you. Look, maybe you make art, or you cultivate a garden, what I wouldn't give to make a garden grow, or you cook, or you play an instrument, or a sport that you love. For whatever passion it is that you have, there is an audience that wants to engage with you about this thing. And when people ask me about getting started, if only there were a place where you could go and research and talk to other people about anything that you like and you love, and you won't even have to leave your house or even put on pants. So I'm just going to leave that right there. But here's a pro tip. Even if it's a pursuit of the mind, Pinterest is a really interesting place to start. Number 3, be open to sequels, remakes, and reboots. Now, I'm not sure that the world needs 4 Spider-Men, 4 thoughtful recreations of the Spider-Man canon, but I do believe that there is plenty of room for more of your own story should you choose to go a different way. So this was about 7 years ago, and I was topping out at about 270 pounds. I had early onset diabetes, early onset heart disease, and sleep apnea so bad I had to wear one of those machines for when you sleep that shoves oxygen into your lungs. And my surgeon said to me as he was wheeling me in for gastric bypass surgery, look, small percentage, you could die from this. Much larger percentage, you're going to get one of a number of complications, and they're going to be really rough, but you'll live. Oh, and indeed I did. A year of really painful, super gross complications, I can vomit on command. Awesome movie moment. But in that, I got to get my life back and share both the horror stories and the success stories with other people, and that brings me a lot of joy. But here's the bad news. Not all remakes and reboots are so triumphant, and not all movie moments are happy ones. Last flashback. I am hiding out behind a fake ficus tree at the Denton County Community Courthouse, right in front of the elevators. It is the last step of a do-it-yourself divorce. And I'm one of the lucky ones. My ex and I are actually very close and still very good friends. But I was so cavalier. I walked in there like it was law and order, and I walked out destroyed, and here's why. Marriage is a dream, and it's also a wish. And when the reality of the death of the dream of my first marriage hit me, I am sure I am not the first person to hide behind that fakey little ficus tree, silent sobbing like my heart was going to break, and be 100% certain that I would never be happy again. But if we are made to seek sequels, remakes, and reboots, beauty, adventure, and meaning, these are big rewards, and they never come easy, and they will require us to be brave and bold and vulnerable. If you like poker, there is a great documentary called All In, and in it, sports writer Frank DeFord says, there is nothing more glamorous than to live your own life. I don't rock a lot of glamour in my day-to-day, so I kind of prefer to think of this as joy. And I know it might sound like a soundbite, but nothing succeeds like success. The momentum that builds as a result of the last three things I've been talking about. Buddy Wakefield is a poet and performer, and in his poem, Beauty the Death Dance, he says, on the face of her phone, Wileen programs a message to herself saying, every time the alarm clock rings, every day is one day less. They're all gonna die, and that's the exciting part. It's learning how to live for a living. Have you ever wanted to do something big?